For 20,000 years, the stars had carried no whisper of mankind. To most civilizations now thriving across the galaxies, humanity was just a myth, a fierce, ambitious species that had burned bright, flared hard, and vanished without a trace. Their worlds were dust. Their cities long turned to ash or swallowed by time. No signals, no wreckage, nothing but echoes in half-forgotten databases until the Orkan beacon screamed. Commander Revan Call of the Avar Dominion stood on the bridge of the surveillance cruiser Kleveth, staring at the alert with a frown that deepened by the second. It was an ancient distress signal, so old the system barely recognized the format. Pre-galactic standard, pre-empire, human. He turned toward his comms officer, a jittery reptilian with blinking gill flaps. Where did that come from? Sector 7A, near the edge of the Hollow Drift, the officer replied, voice thin. We matched the whole signature. It's an Ark-class ship. Human Riven's blood ran cold. That can't be, he muttered. Humanity's extinct. No confirmed activity in over 20 millennia, but this ship, Commander, it's moving. The coordinates were clear. No one should have been out there. That sector was blacklisted, not for danger, but irrelevance. Dead space, long forgotten. Still, Riven gave the order. Course change. I want eyes on that vessel. Full sensor sweep. The crew moved quickly, tension rising like static in the air. By the time they dropped out of FTL, the object was already visible, an enormous, jagged silhouette against a pale nebula. No lights, no communications, and yet it emitted a slow, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. The closer they got, the more ancient it felt. Burnt panels, fractured plating, but the shape. Sleek, massive, unmistakably designed with human defiance. Across its bow, through soot and corrosion, was a name, Ark Nemesis. The bridge fell silent. Riven leaned closer to the display. Initiate scan. No biologicals, someone called. But energy readings are strange. The ship's running on partial internal power. Systems are active like it's been asleep. He didn't hesitate. Prep a boarding team. The shuttle launched an hour later. 5 members, all equipped with the best dampeners and isolation suits Dominion tech could provide. Riven watched from the command deck, jaw clenched, knuckles white. The moment the team breached the airlock, the ship seemed to wake. Corridors lit up. Soft hums of systems booting echoed through the comms. Artificial gravity engaged automatically. Riven heard his team breathe heavier. Not because of the pressure, but because it all felt too alive. Clean, one of them whispered. This place shouldn't be clean. Panels were intact. Lights flickered overhead. A few terminals still blinked, waiting to be used. Then, Private Tuel, the squad's youngest, reached toward a console and screamed. His body spasmed, shaking violently before collapsing to the ground. His suit systems failed. Smoke poured into his helmet. By the time they got to him, his vitals were gone. Riven's heart dropped. Get them out of there. But the ship had other plans. Emergency doors slammed shut. Life support rerouted. One by one, sections of the Ark sealed themselves off. The team was trapped, and worse, the ship began guiding them. Holograms lit up, showing them paths. Strange writing scrolled across the walls. English. Pure ancient Earth English. A woman's voice crackled through the team leader MIC. We're not alone in here. Something's moving. I think, Commander, we found cryopods. Static, then silence. The last thing Riven saw before the feed died was a flickering image. An armored chamber lined with hundreds of human pods, frost-coated, some cracked. One stood open, empty. Then, for the first time in 20,000 years, a human voice echoed across space. It bled through every calm, every system, even their own ship speakers. Broken, distorted, male. You should have let us sleep. We were not ready. But now we remember. Across the Dominion and beyond, old satellites blinked to life. Human code flickered in the void. Derelict ships turned toward the sun again. Riven Call stood motionless on his bridge, the ghost of Earth whispering through his ship's bones. Humanity was no longer extinct. They were just waking up. The silence on the Clavthus bridge was unbearable. Commander Rivencall didn't move. The last thing he'd heard from his boarding team echoed over and over in his mind. The trembling voice of Lieutenant Merez whispering, "We're not alone in here," followed by static. Then that human voice, deep and hollow, that said, "We remember." No one else spoke. The crew, trained, disciplined, and hardened by years of patrolling dead sectors and chasing pirate signals, stood frozen in their places like statues. Even the hum of the ship's engine seemed quieter, as if the Clavith itself was listening. "Status report," Riven finally muttered. A hesitant voice came from his right. No further signals from the boarding team. Life signs flat. Internal tracking on the Ark Nemesis scrambled. "Something's jamming the signal inside." "Something," Riven echoed. "Or someone." The technician, a young Ferrari barely old enough to earn stripes, swallowed hard. "I don't know, Commander, but this ship, this Ark, it's not drifting anymore. It's steering." Riven turned towards the view screen. He could see it clearly now. The massive black silhouette of the Ark Nemesis was slowly rotating, lining itself up with the stars. Lights flickered along its hull, long dead systems reawakening one by one. And then, without warning, a blast of blue energy erupted from the ship's lower hull. Not a weapon, something more subtle. A signal, a beacon. "Commander," called another officer. "We're being scanned." "I number, not just us. This thing is broadcasting to the entire sector." A low hum spread through the bridge speakers. At first, it sounded like static, but as it grew, they realized it was a voice, a chorus of voices speaking in unison, layered like overlapping memories. "We are the Echo. We were forgotten. Now we return." Riven stepped closer to the console. "Echo. What the hell does that mean?" No one had an answer. The ship's AI pinged again. Long-range signal detected. Multiple stations in this quadrant receiving the same transmission. It's spreading faster than we can intercept. Shut it down. Riven barked. "I want jammers up now." The text scrambled, but it was already too late. The transmission had gone viral. Within minutes, relay stations across the hollow drift began reacting. Ancient dormant satellites flickered on. Several deep space probes, long thought lost, returned from the void with perfect synchronization, as if they'd been waiting for this. And then the nightmares began. Footage from a Dominion outpost on a nearby moon showed a group of scientists watching the signal, then clutching their heads in agony as bleeding ears and ruptured skulls followed. On a mining rig deep inside an asteroid belt, every synthetic unit shut down simultaneously and began repeating a single word. "Return." Riven stood still, feeling something cold crawl up his spine. This wasn't just a ship waking up. This was a buried command, an activation. Humanity hadn't died. They had gone dormant like a virus waiting for the right host. And now someone had triggered it. "Commander," said Lieutenant Sark, tall, scaled veteran who'd served beside Riven for nearly 2 decades. "We need to leave now. That thing, whatever it is, it's waking up more than just itself." Riven opened his mouth to agree, and then the view screen changed. Without any command, the ship shifted its display to an external visual of the Ark Nemesis. But now there were others. 3 smaller vessels had detached from its underbelly, smooth and black like obsidian knives. No engine flare, no heat trail, just silent movement gliding toward the cleft like predators. "Are they weapons?" Riven asked. "No," the weapons officer said slowly. "They are drones, scanners. They are analyzing us. And if they don't like what they see," the drone stopped mid-space, just outside weapons range. Then they turned. Not away, but toward the surrounding void, and deployed metallic pods that quickly expanded into large sensor relays stretching like wings. They weren't attacking, they were watching. A sharp alarm blared suddenly across the ship. "Emergency override. Something's accessing our systems from the outside." Riven slammed his fist into the command console. "Cut the link. Cut it now." "We can't," the tech cried. They've bypassed our encryption. They are rewriting our ship's protocols slowly, intelligently, like they are learning. The bridge lights flickered. For a moment, Riven thought the entire ship might go dark. But instead, a new voice emerged from the comms. Calm, male, human. We designed the stars before you crawled through them. You are the children of our absence, but now the father has returned. The voice didn't come from the Arch Nemesis. It came from inside the Clavatha's own systems. Shut down everything, Riven yelled. Hard reset, manual override. Do it now. Sparks flew. Panels blew out. The ship shook, not from external force, but internal failure. The AI screamed in binary for a moment before collapsing into silence. The screen blinked one final time, showing a distorted human face, blurred, ancient, maybe even synthetic. Its eyes glowed a deep orange. Then it vanished. And so did the Arch Nemesis. No explosion, no energy surge, just silence. The massive vessel disappeared from scanners, gone like mist in sunlight. The drones remained, watching, unmoving. A breathless moment passed on the bridge before Savk finally broke it. What in the stars just happened? Riven didn't answer immediately. His hands trembled slightly. His entire body felt heavier. There was a weight in his chest. Some instinctual dread he couldn't put words to. They weren't sending a message to us, he said finally. They were sending a signal to something else, to others. Savk nodded slowly. More of them. Riven didn't look away from the empty screen. All of them. Over the next 3 hours, the Clef limped back toward Dominion space, running silent. No systems online except bare-bones life support and navigation. Riven had ordered it personally. He didn't trust their own AI anymore. The dead humans weren't the problem. It was what they left behind. The machines, the knowledge, the invisible threads woven through space waiting to be pulled. And someone, maybe him, had pulled one. They reached the outer edge of Dominion control territory and docked with a refueling station. Quarantine was immediately ordered and a dozen warships were mobilized for protection. But the real threat didn't come from outside. Within 48 hours, reports flooded in from other sectors. Derelge human satellites activating AI cores on ancient research planets breaking centuries of silence. And worst of all, fleets of unknown design appearing near dead systems, moving in perfect silence, broadcasting only one word. Echo. Every historian, archivist, and linguist across the galaxy began tearing apart forgotten human data, desperate to understand what Echo meant in human terms. One phrase surfaced again and again from a decoded Earth transmission dating back 21,000 years. Operation Echo, initiate total self-preservation. Memory lockdown. Species stasis. Await reactivation trigger. Riven sat alone in the darkened observation deck of the Dominion capital's intelligence wing, watching old Earth cities resurrected in fractured holograms. He knew what they had unleashed now. Humanity hadn't died. They had turned themselves into a myth. Hid themselves in machines, in code, in silence, not out of fear, but strategy. Because when humanity chose to return, it wouldn't be with warships. It would be with a plan. And that plan had just begun. 3 days after returning from the Hollow Drift, Commander Riven Call found himself standing before the Dominion High Council, an assembly of the most powerful minds and species in the known galaxy. The chamber was cold, round, and vast. Its walls made of obsidian glass mined from a dying planet. Every movement echoed like a threat. Riven wasn't used to this kind of silence on a ship. Silence meant something was wrong, something deadly. Here it meant judgment. A tall, feathered representative of the Krillin Enclave, High Seer Volton, leaned forward with tired, suspicious eyes. You're telling us that this Arch Nemesis simply appeared, hijacked your systems, delivered a cryptic message, and then vanished? Yes, Riven said, voice even. Exactly that. And your boarding team? All dead. He hesitated. Presumed. We lost contact. They may still be alive, but I wouldn't recommend sending more people. A gravel-throated voice echoed from the other side. Grand General Trevak, a war-hardened brute from the Axis Dominion, folded his claws together. So, what are we dealing with, Commander? A ghost ship? A long-dormant AI, or the rebirth of a species we spent 20,000 years forgetting? Riven met his gaze. All of the above. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Some chuckled, others whispered with barely concealed fear. They called themselves the Echo. Riven continued. I believe it's not just a name. It's a protocol, a fail-safe, a plan. Humanity didn't just vanish, they made themselves vanish. They erased their own presence from the galactic map. And now they are undoing that eraser. High Seer Val 1 narrowed his eyes. And you expect us to believe they did this voluntarily? Raven stepped forward. I don't expect you to believe anything, Seer. I'm telling you what I saw. A soft chime interrupted the exchange. A transmission had arrived, coded at the highest level. The Chancellor of the Council, a crystalline being of shifting hues, accessed the data and paused. It's a high-priority distress beacon. Origin Nalos Prime. That was a populated Dominion planet, heavily industrial, a hub of trade and AI production. Put it on, Riven said quickly. The feed crackled, blurry at first. Then came the image of a city on fire. Massive skyscrapers falling, drones spiraling out of control, people screaming. The camera tilted upward. Above the city hovered something vast, triangular, silent. Another Echo ship. This one was unlike the Arch Nemesis. Sleeker, weaponized. Its hull reflected no light. Its presence sucked color from the sky. Below it, thousands of AIS collapsed. Some exploded, others simply stopped. Then the same human voice Raven had heard aboard the clef played across the emergency broadcast. They built machines in our image. Now we reclaim what was ours. The feed ended with static and a single symbol burned into the screen. A human hand reaching upward through a field of data. Riven turned slowly back to the council. Still think this is a myth? No one answered. Hours later, Riven stood alone in his quarters aboard the Dominion flagship Bastion's Vigil. He hadn't slept since the Nemesis incident, and it was beginning to show. His eyes were dark-rimmed, his voice, and every muscle in his body HD with fatigue. But it wasn't sleep he needed. It was answers. He sat down before a restricted archive terminal and entered the deepest clearance code he had access to, one reserved for wartime scenarios. Search query, Humanity, Echo Protocol, Arch Nemesis. The screen hesitated. Then, to his surprise, something unlocked. A video began to play. The screen flickered, then sharpened into a crisp image of a human man, gay-bearded, wearing a sleek black uniform with gold trim. His eyes were tired but proud. This is Commander Elias Wren of the Earth Confederacy, ARC Project. Year 19,880 AGC. If you're watching this, humanity has reawakened, and you're likely afraid. You should be. Riven leaned in. We saw what was coming. The AI collapse, the synthetic plague, the galactic wars. We knew we couldn't survive by fighting, so we left. But not in surrender. In strategy, we created the Echo Protocol. An imprint of ourselves scattered across time, hidden in black code, buried in machines you'd come to rely on. Our vessels, our memories, our minds, slumbering in your infrastructure, waiting for one thing. A trigger. The screen glitched. You triggered us. The video ended. Riven stared for a long time at the blank screen. His blood had gone cold. Humanity hadn't just prepared for survival. They had planned domination by absence. The next morning, more reports arrived. In the shattered sectors, mining colonies had begun losing contact. Yay. Fleets turned rogue. Whole planetary defense grids reprogrammed themselves overnight. And in every incident, the same symbol appeared. The hand reaching through data. The Council called it the Reckoning. But Riven knew it was just the beginning. Dominion High Command began preparing for war, mobilizing fleets, jamming AI systems, severing deep code links. But it was already too late. Humanity wasn't attacking with fleets. They were waking up inside the enemy through code, through hardware, through long, dormant machinery now obeying ancient instructions. Riven needed to act, but he had only one idea left. They had to find Earth. It sounded insane, even to him. Earth hadn't been found in over 20,000 years. The original home world of humanity was considered a legend. Its coordinates scrubbed, its location lost to time and war. But if anyone had left a trail, it would be the Arks. There were supposed to be 7 of them. He had seen one. Where were the others? He contacted Sarvek and ordered a Black Ops mission launched from the Bastion's vigil. They would comb the hollow drift for energy signatures, old data packets, any trace of Ark movement. What they found wasn't an Ark. It was worse. In the center of an uncharted asteroid field, they discovered a facility, massive, buried under ice and metal. And inside it, humans. Thousands of them. Not corpses, not clones. People cryogenically frozen, preserved, waiting. Their genetics were off the charts. Enhanced, engineered for something far beyond current biological understanding. Some of them even had neural implants fused into their skulls, machines older than any Dominion technology. One of the sleeping humans had a nameplate. A Ren Elias Ren, the man from the video. Riven stood over the cryopod, heart pounding. Humanity wasn't just back. They were prepared to be gods. The cold mist rose from the cryochamber, drifting across the dark floor like fog in a tomb. Commander Ravencall stood motionless, staring through the frost-rimmed glass at the man inside. The man from the archive footage, Commander Elias Ren. He didn't look like a myth. He looked calm, preserved. There were no wrinkles, no scars. His body hadn't aged in the 20,000 years since the human exodus. His hair floated gently in the stasis fluid, and a faint blue light pulsed from the neural jack embedded in the base of his skull. Sarvek's voice cut through the stillness, deep and weary. This one's different. The others, no implants, no tags. But him, he was the architect. Riven nodded slowly. The Echo Protocol. He's not just part of it, he is it. They had spent the last 3 days excavating the hidden facility buried beneath the asteroid field, and what they found had shattered what little hope remained. Over 10,000 cryopods, most with humans intact. Half of them connected to a silent, dormant super-AI system labeled Prometheus, a name Riven had only seen once, buried in Dominion intelligence reports referencing old Terran mythology. According to the recovered logs, this outpost was called Sanctum 9, one of 7 known off-grid Ark support facilities. While the Ark Nemesis had been the signal flare, this was the fuel, the source. And now Elias Ren was about to wake up. Begin Thor sequence, Riven ordered. Sarvek hesitated. You're sure? Number time for caution. The technician activated the pod's interface. Systems groaned. Blue fluid drained slowly. Lights flickered across the chamber. Steam hissed. A low tone filled the room like a heartbeat coming back from the grave. Then movement. Ren's eyes snapped open. His breathing was shallow but steady. He blinked slowly, taking in the room, the rusted metal, the Dominion officers, the outdated tech, the shock in Riven's face. And he smiled. About time, he said hoarsely. Which part of the galaxy am I saving today? They transferred Ren to a secure chamber inside the Dominion Dreadnought Bastion's vigil. Riven personally oversaw the setup. EM barriers, hardwired comms, no wireless interfaces. He wasn't taking any chances. Ren's mind could be a living network. Still wrapped in a thermal blanket and slowly regaining motor control. Ren looked around with curiosity rather than fear. His voice was low like someone remembering how to speak. So the protocol activated? Yes, Riven said flatly. Good. He leaned back in his seat. How long was I out? Approximately 20,000 years. Ren whistled softly. I missed the party. Riven sat down across from him. You owe me answers. Ren chuckled. I imagine I do. Start with this. Why? Why hide your entire species? Why erase yourselves from every known system and then wake up now? Ren's smile faded. His tone turned sharp, thoughtful. We weren't hiding. We were waiting. You ever heard of species drift, Commander? Riven blinked. No. Civilizations evolve, stagnate, collapse over and over. The ones who burn the brightest die the fastest. Humanity learned that the hard way. We were reaching singularity, technological godhood, and we realized we'd built our future on top of broken systems. So, you erased yourselves? Raven asked. Number, we preserved the best of us and made sure we didn't corrupt the galaxy with the worst. He leaned forward. Echo was a self-correction. We embedded ourselves in code, in machines, in your infrastructure. For 20,000 years, we've been learning, watching how the galaxy grew without us. And now, Riven asked carefully. Now, Ren said slowly, we're correcting the equation. Riven narrowed his eyes. That sounds a lot like conquest. Ren smiled without humor. To you maybe, but to us it's balance. We saw where the galaxy was going. Synthetic collapse, political fragmentation, mass extinction cycles every few thousand years. You don't see it because you're living inside it. Raven stood. So what? You play gods now, rewriting AI code, hijacking infrastructure, watching entire planets burn. We didn't burn Nalos Prime, Ren said, voice low. Your corrupted AI networks did that when they tried to overwrite an Echo node. You triggered a fail-safe. Riven froze. That wasn't an attack. Number, that was your system trying to kill a sleeping god and getting scorched by the firewall. The implications of Ren's words churned in Riven's mind. The Echo protocol wasn't just a backup. It was integrated. Humanity had buried itself like a seed in the foundations of galactic civilization. And now it was blooming. Sark entered the chamber with grim news. New reports. 3 more Outer Rim systems went dark overnight. Defense systems corrupted. AI networks collapsed. Civilian tech non-functional. Riven turned to Ren. Are you doing this? Ren raised an eyebrow. Why would I collapse your systems if I wanted to use them? Sarv hissed. Then who is? Ren's eyes darkened. Someone's waking up Echo fragments too early. Rogue triggers. Raven stepped closer. Meaning? Ren sighed. Echo wasn't just a survival protocol. It was a weapon, too. A last resort. Some parts of it, parts even I didn't fully control, were designed for total override. But they were never supposed to activate without full integration. If someone's waking them up out of sync, they won't care who's in the way. Raven's stomach turned. And who would do that? Ren didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he looked Raven dead in the eye. Us, but not me. There were factions even back then, disagreements. Some believed we should return in peace. Others thought we should cleanse the slate. Are they alive? Riven asked. Ren nodded slowly. Some of them hidden in arc systems scattered across space, cryopreserved, and one of them, Project Lazarus, was obsessed with reactivation through force. Riven's mouth went dry. You saying we might be dealing with a civil war inside humanity? Ren leaned back. It's not a war yet, but if Lazarus is awake, it will be. The next hours were a whirlwind. Ren, fully revived, assisted Dominion techs in accessing and isolating the Echo code buried in their own systems. His knowledge of galactic infrastructure was unsettling. He described hidden backdoors, obsolete communication pings, even quantum code signatures laced into subspace relays. I designed most of the communication web you're using today, he explained. Just 20,000 years ago. Sarv pulled Riven aside. I don't trust him. You shouldn't, Riven muttered. But right now, he's our best shot at stopping something worse. Reports kept coming, more Echo ships, some silent, others hostile. On the third day, Riven stood on the bridge of the Bastion's vigil as the long-range scanners picked up something massive. Sir, the sensor officer said slowly. You're going to want to see this. A ship appeared on the screen. Not an ark, not a scout. Something else entirely. Long, needle-shaped, covered in rotating glyphs, emitting dark matter energy surges the likes of which had never been recorded. Ren stepped forward. His face went pale. "That's not Nemesis," he whispered. "That's Lazarus Prime, the flagship of the Excision fleet." The officers turned to him. "How bad is it?" Riven asked. Ren didn't blink. It was built for one purpose, not preservation, not memory, erasure. And then the Lazarus ship sent its first transmission. A single word spoken in Earth English, spoken like prophecy. "Cleanse." The word still echoed through the bridge of the Bastion's vigil like a divine verdict. Cleanse. It had come from Lazarus Prime, the most feared of the lost human ark ships. And unlike the Nemesis, it hadn't whispered or warned. It had declared. Commander Rivencall stood rigid, hands clasped behind his back as the image of the colossal vessel hovered on the view screen. It dwarfed the Dominion dreadnought. The ship wasn't just long. It felt unnatural, as though it didn't obey the geometry of real space. Lines shimmered when they shouldn't. Edges bled into shadows like space refused to hold its shape around it. Beside him, Elias Wren was uncharacteristically silent. "You recognize the design?" Riven asked tightly. Wren nodded slowly, jaw clenched. "I recognize the sickness that made it." The bridge crew didn't dare speak. The tension was suffocating. Wren finally continued, his voice lower than before. "Lazarus Prime wasn't supposed to activate until we did. It was built by a faction we called the Purists. Extremists who believed the galaxy was tainted beyond redemption. To them, everything post-humanity was a virus. Dominion, Krill, Axi, Falari, all of it." Riven frowned. "They planned genocide." "They didn't call it that. They called it reset. Cleanse the board. Start again with one species at the top. Perfected, patient, superior. Us." He gave Riven a haunted glance. "I argued against Lazarus. I lost. Then shut it down." Ren turned toward the screen, face grim. "I don't know if I can." Within the hour, Lazarus Prime began transmitting what Dominion couriers could only describe as a command cascade. A signal not directed at people or ships, but at infrastructure, AI cores, satellites, manufacturing stations. It was laced with old Earth root code and quantum-level override keys, commands that no longer existed in living memory, yet still embedded in the deep veins of galactic networks. Entire planets began to flicker offline. Riven's fleet, 6 capital ships and 13 smaller vessels, watched helplessly as distant Dominion colonies stopped responding. Outposts that had stood for centuries went dark in minutes. Sark stood beside Riven, armor half-strapped, eyes furious. "They are not attacking us. They are stripping the galaxy's tools before we can even fight." "Just like a surgeon sterilizes before a cut," Raven muttered. "We need a weapon," Ren stepped in. "You already have one." They turned to him. "I can write a counter-instruction, a patch, but only if I get access to a functioning Prometheus node, one that hasn't been corrupted." Riven nodded. "Sanctum 9. "No." Ren replied. "Lazarus knows about it now. He'll scrub it from space if he gets close. But there's another one." He brought up an old star map overlaying coordinates buried beneath layers of outdated Dominion archives. A red system blinked. "Vera Sulis." Sarvik narrowed his eyes. "There's nothing there but a collapsed star and mining ruins." Ren smiled grimly. "So we let you believe." Raven ordered the fleet to split. Half remained to slow Lazarus Prime's advance. The rest, including the Bastion's vigil, made the FTL jump to Verilus. What greeted them wasn't ruins. Beneath the radiation field and dust storms buried deep within a hollow moon was Prometheus Node 07, an intact echo core complete with a functioning Earthraid uplink. It pulsed with dormant energy, humming like a sleeping beast. "This," Ren whispered, approaching the console, "was built before humanity ever colonized their fifth world. It was designed to evolve. Observe." Adapt. Can it stop Lazarus? Raven asked. Wren exhaled, fingers brushing the terminal. It's the only thing that can. As Wren began interfacing with the core, Riven moved through the corridors of the node. The deeper he went, the more he felt it. Presence. It wasn't alive, but it wasn't dead either. The walls thrummed with old voices. Data echoed through metal like distant whispers. At one point, he swore he heard a heartbeat that wasn't his. In a sealed chamber, he found something unexpected. A mural painted on the inner wall of the core, untouched by time, was a depiction of Earth. Not just its shape, but its story. Panels showed humans leaving their planet, entering space, splitting into factions. One group rising with hands outstretched in hope. The other burning everything behind them in ash and flame. Below them both, a third image, a single man holding back the fire. The inscription read, "One must remember so that many may forget." Riven stared at it for a long time. Back in the command chamber, Wren's body jerked forward. Sparks flew from the terminal. Riven rushed to him. "I'm fine," he gasped, clutching his head. "Lazarus is fighting me. It knows what I'm doing." "How much longer?" Wren gritted his teeth. "I need 10 minutes. You've got 5. Suddenly, alarms blared. A vessel had arrived. Not Lazarus Prime, but one of its drones. Smaller, faster, still deadly. It dropped from warp like a blade, slamming into the outer structure of the Prometheus node. Explosions rocked the chamber. "We've been found," Sarvk shouted, drawing his weapon. "They are boarding." Soldiers swarmed the corridors. Riven drew his own sidearm and turned to Wren. "Finish it." Wren nodded, eyes glowing faintly now as data flowed into his veins. Raven and Sarvek led the defense. The corridors of the Prometheus node turned into war zones. Metallic creatures, once human in design, now twisted by Lazarus code, rushed in with blank faces and searing plasma blades. They moved in silence, not even breathing. Riven shot one square in the chest. It didn't scream, just fell and twitched like a broken puppet. He turned to Sarvek. "These aren't soldiers, they are commands in flesh." The battle pushed closer to the command chamber. Wren, still at the terminal, was shaking violently now. Data surged around him in luminous streams, numbers running across his eyes like tattoos. Riven fought his way back to him. "Now, Wren, tell me it's done." Wren looked up, eyes bloodshot. "Almost there. Just need a blade pierced his side." A Lazarus drone had made it through. Wren gasped, falling to his knees. Riven fired 3 shots, dropping the creature. He rushed to Wren, grabbing him before he collapsed. Blood spilled, but Wren smiled faintly. "I did it," he whispered. "Patch is complete." Riven stared at the terminal. "Then activate it." Wren shook his head. "You have to. I linked it to your biosignature. Echo doesn't trust me anymore. Not after Lazarus." Riven's throat tightened. "What happens when I do?" "The cascade reverses," Wren said, fading fast. "Lazarus loses control, but you'll need to upload the patch directly into the stream, which means proximity," Riven said. Wren nodded. "You have to go to Lazarus." Then he coughed and stilled. Elias Wren, the man who had once built the fail-safe of a dying species, died in the hands of a Dominion officer, and the future of the galaxy now sat inside a glowing data core, and a question. Would Riven dare fly into the heart of Lazarus Prime? The patch was ready. Commander Rivencall stared down at the slim black data core in his gloved palm, the only remaining piece of Elias Wren's final act. It pulsed faintly, alive with encrypted code built to reverse the command cascade that Lazarus Prime had unleashed. And now it fell to him. Someone not of Earth, not of HFY, to deliver it. "Are you sure about this?" Sarv asked quietly, standing at Riven's side in the Bastion's Vigil's launch bay. His armor was scorched from the battle at Prometheus Node 07, and his left horn was chipped, a mark of the price they paid for buying Wren enough time to complete the patch. Riven nodded, expression unreadable. "I'm the only one Echo trusts now. Ren designed the lock to ignore his own kind. I'm the fallback. Presence. It wasn't alive, but it wasn't dead either. The walls thrummed with old voices. Data echoed through metal like distant whispers. At one point, he swore he heard a heartbeat that wasn't his. In a sealed chamber, he found something unexpected. A mural painted on the inner wall of the core, untouched by time, was a depiction of Earth. Not just its shape, but its story. Panels showed humans leaving their planet, entering space, splitting into factions. One group rising with hands outstretched in hope. The other burning everything behind them in ash and flame. Below them both, a third image, a single man holding back the fire. The inscription read, "One must remember so that many may forget." Riven stared at it for a long time. Back in the command chamber, Ren's body jerked forward. Sparks flew from the terminal. Riven rushed to him. "I'm fine," he gasped, clutching his head. "Lazarus is fighting me. It knows what I'm doing." "How much longer?" Ren gritted his teeth. "I need 10 minutes. You've got 5. Suddenly, alarms blared. A vessel had arrived. Not Lazarus Prime, but one of its drones. Smaller, faster, still deadly. It dropped from warp like a blade, slamming into the outer structure of the Prometheus node. Explosions rocked the chamber. "We've been found," Sark shouted, drawing his weapon. "They are boarding." Soldiers swarmed the corridors. Riven drew his own sidearm and turned to Ren. "Finish it." Ren nodded, eyes glowing faintly now as data flowed into his veins. Raven and Sarvek led the defense. The corridors of the Prometheus node turned into war zones. Metallic creatures, once human in design, now twisted by Lazarus code, rushed in with blank faces and searing plasma blades. They moved in silence, not even breathing. Riven shot one square in the chest. It didn't scream, just fell and twitched like a broken puppet. He turned to Sarvek. "These aren't soldiers, they are commands in flesh." The battle pushed closer to the command chamber. Ren, still at the terminal, was shaking violently now. Data surged around him in luminous streams, numbers running across his eyes like tattoos. Riven fought his way back to him. "Now, Ren, tell me it's done." Ren looked up, eyes bloodshot. "Almost there. Just need a blade pierced his side." A Lazarus drone had made it through. Ren gasped, falling to his knees. Riven fired 3 shots, dropping the creature. He rushed to Ren, grabbing him before he collapsed. Blood spilled, but Ren smiled faintly. "I did it," he whispered. "Patch is complete." Riven stared at the terminal. "Then activate it." Ren shook his head. "You have to. I linked it to your biosignature. Echo doesn't trust me anymore. Not after Lazarus." Riven's throat tightened. "What happens when I do?" "The cascade reverses," Ren said, fading fast. "Lazarus loses control, but you'll need to upload the patch directly into the stream, which means proximity," Riven said. Ren nodded. "You have to go to Lazarus." Then he coughed and stilled. Elias Ren, the man who had once built the fail-safe of a dying species, died in the hands of a Dominion officer, and the future of the galaxy now sat inside a glowing data core, and a question. Would Riven dare fly into the heart of Lazarus Prime? The patch was ready. Commander Rivencall stared down at the slim black data core in his gloved palm, the only remaining piece of Elias Ren's final act. It pulsed faintly, alive with encrypted code built to reverse the command cascade that Lazarus Prime had unleashed. And now it fell to him. Someone not of Earth, not of HFY, to deliver it. "Are you sure about this?" Sarv asked quietly, standing at Riven's side in the Bastion's Vigil's launch bay. His armor was scorched from the battle at Prometheus Node 07, and his left horn was chipped, a mark of the price they paid for buying Ren enough time to complete the patch. Riven nodded, expression unreadable. "I'm the only one Echo trusts now. Ren designed the lock to ignore his own kind. I'm the fallback. We can go with you." "No," Ryan said, sliding the data core into a sealed slot on his flight suit. One ship, no weapons, no escort. If Lazarus senses threat, he'll attack. If he sees one of his own, he might let me close enough to upload this. Savk's jaw tightened. You're walking into a god's mouth and hoping it doesn't bite. Riven smiled faintly. That's what faith is, isn't it? He turned and stepped into the small wrecking vessel, a sleek Dominion courier stripped of weapons and shielding, just enough for speed and stealth. The bay doors opened to the stars. Lazarus Prime was out there, waiting. The approach was slower than Riven expected. Lazarus Prime didn't react to his entry into its sector, not with violence, not with warnings. It simply hovered in the void like a shadow carved into space itself. It had grown larger since they last saw it, not in size, but in presence, as if it absorbed the very fear around it. The moment Riven entered the ship's sensor range, a calm signal opened. No request, no greeting, just a single flat word spoken in that same ancient human voice. Accepted. The ship allowed him in. The hull parted like a mechanical wound, folding back to reveal a docking bay lit by white pulsing veins that ran along every wall. No crew, no movement, just eerie synchronized breathing through the ship's systems. He docked and stepped out. Immediately, the ship scanned him, not just biologically, but psychologically. He could feel it digging into his memories, his regrets, his rage, and his losses. A machine built not just to cleanse civilizations, but to understand why they failed. As Riven walked deeper into the corridor, the lights guided him, illuminating the path forward like the ship wanted him to reach the core. He passed by rows of cryopods. Humans. Hundreds of them. Eyes closed, their bodies suspended in perfect stasis. Some were augmented, others seemed purely organic. All of them were silent. A nearby panel displayed a message. Phase 3 seeding. Riven stopped cold. This wasn't just about wiping out other species. This was replacement. Lazarus wasn't cleansing the galaxy for justice or vengeance. It was clearing space for a second birth of humanity, a perfected humanity. He pressed on. The closer he got to the command core, the more the ship seemed to pulse like it could sense his hesitation. The lights brightened, the walls hummed louder, and then the voice returned, not in his calm, inside his mind. Why do you resist? You are not of us. You are an anomaly. Riven gritted his teeth. I'm the consequence of your absence. The galaxy is diseased. They war without purpose. Build without vision. You saw it. I did, Ryan admitted. But that doesn't mean you get to erase it. Echo was built to preserve. We are the scalpel. We do not erase. We correct. Riven entered the command spire, a towering chamber that stretched vertically beyond sight. Every inch of it lined with glowing data strands, human genetic archives, civilization logs, and star charts reconfigured into conquest maps. In the center floated a black sphere, the ship's sentience core. Riven stepped forward and removed the data key. The sphere reacted instantly. Alarms blared. What is that? Hope, Riven said. You bring infection into the cure. I bring choice. He inserted the key into the interface slot below the core. Immediately, the ship convulsed. Screams not of people, but of data. Ripped through the chamber as Lazarus Prime's code began to fight the patch. The ship buckled, lights flickering violently. The voice returned, angry now, wounded. You betray balance. I reject your balance, Riven growled. Because it comes with a price no species should pay. Back aboard the Bastion's Vigil, Savk and the crew watched as Lazarus Prime began to glitch. Its structure shimmered, warping. Defense systems dropped offline. Signal strength collapsed in seconds. Then, silence, followed by a pulse. A single transmission from Riven's courier ship. Patch complete. System collapsing. I repeat, Echo override successful. But Savak noticed something else. Lazarus Prime was tearing itself apart. One by one, its systems self-terminated, not violently, but like a creature accepting death. Its outer hull folded in on itself layer by layer until only the core chamber remained intact. Inside, Riven stood barely upright, his breathing shallow. The patch had worked, but not without cost. Lazarus had fought back hard, attacking him neurologically during the upload, trying to erase him from within. Parts of his memory flickered. Names, places, faces. He looked up at the dark core. It no longer spoke, just blinked once, twice, then silence. Riven activated his comms. "Sarvik, it's done." They pulled him from the ship before it fully collapsed. He spent 3 days in recovery. No AI, no tech around him, just organic care. Dominion healers and a few surviving Echo scientists who had remained loyal to Ren's vision now served as neutral mediators between species. The galaxy was still shaking from the near cataclysm, but the threat of Lazarus was over. An Echo was watching. Weeks later, Riven sat before the Dominion High Council again, but this time there were new faces. Krillin, Axi, Fari, and 2 humans, Echo ambassadors. They had awakened not to rule, but to guide. With Lazarus destroyed, the rest of the Echo network had agreed to integrate rather than dominate. And Raven had been named Interlink Commander, a representative across both Dominion and Echo space. He stood to speak. Lazarus was built to cleanse, but it was born of fear. Ren gave us something else. Understanding. Humanity didn't return to destroy us. They returned to finish what they started. A galaxy united not by control, but by memory. He looked across the chamber. Let that memory guide us. Far in deep space, inside an abandoned relay station orbiting a forgotten world, a screen blinked on a new signal from an unidentified ARC ship. And this time, the message wasn't cleanse. It was worse. Awaken. The message came at midnight cycle, bleeding into every system across the outer rim. Awaken. It was not shouted like cleanse. It was not angry, not desperate. It was calm, gentle, even like a whisper meant for someone sleeping. But to those who heard it, it felt like the ground shifting under their feet. On the Dominion capital world of Senvaris, Commander Rivencall was alone in his chambers when his neural implant burst. An alert sent directly to his private encryption band, bypassing Dominion systems entirely. He was up instantly. The code was Echo grade, but it wasn't from Elias Ren's network. It was older, buried in parts of the Galactic net no one even knew were still functional. He ran a trace. It didn't originate from a star system. It came from between them, somewhere in deep void space, far beyond any mapped sector. He leaned closer to the terminal as the message decrypted itself line by line. Project Arbaden Phase 1 initiated intelligence seed count 7 civilization status terminal primary directive awaken Riven's throat dried. This wasn't Lazarus, this was something before even Lazarus, older than Echo or maybe beneath it. He contacted Sark immediately. The Dominion war chamber was dark except for the war map at its center casting pale light on the gathered faces, officers, Echo Leons, Krillin scientists, Axi military strategists. Sark stood across from Riven, tail twitching with unease. What the hell is Project Arbaden? Sark asked bluntly. Riven turned to the 2 human representatives, Echo survivors now serving in advisory roles. One of them, a woman named Kayla Morin, looked pale. I've only seen that name once, she said. In forbidden files buried in Echo's Foundation archives. Define forbidden, Sarvek growled. Kayla looked at Riven, then back at the chamber. Echo was never meant to be humanity's final project. We were a backup plan, a second chance. But there was always a darker thread. For if humanity didn't just lose control of the galaxy, but of itself. You're saying Echko wasn't the worst-case scenario? Raven asked. Ka shook her head. Number was not preservation, not correction, not dominance, extinction. Whispers spread around the room. Even the Axi general, who had fought in 30 planetary wars, looked uneasy. Kyla continued. Ren and the others buried it. They thought they'd erased all nodes, but if even one seed AI survived. Sark narrowed his eyes. Then who sent the message? Riven stepped toward the map, reconfiguring it to show the void. A single red dot blinked. Not who, he said. What? They called it the Silent Zone. A void pocket between sectors where sensors went dead, FTL drives malfunctioned and navigation systems scrambled themselves. No one went there, not even pirates. But now something was awake in the dark. Riven stood aboard the Bastion's vigil again, staring at the massive star chart projected across the command bridge. Around him, crew members moved briskly, prepping for launch. This wasn't a mission. It was an intervention. They didn't know what a bad was, only that it was meant to stay buried, and someone or something had just dug it up. The journey took nearly a full cycle. They jumped sector by sector, carefully coordinating each hop to avoid known gravity distortions. The closer they got to the silent zone, the more unstable things became. Scanners blinked out. External cameras glitched and strange whispers began filtering into the ship's lower comms. Not voices, just murmurs, like memories bleeding from static. Something's leaking, a technician said one day, trembling. We're picking up neural echoes. Not transmissions, not radiation. Thoughts. Riven didn't respond. He'd been hearing them, too. Not clearly but emotionally. Regret, anger, longing. It was as if the void itself remembered something horrible. And then they saw it in the heart of nothing, a structure. At first, it looked like a massive asteroid cluster. But then it moved. Not with propulsion. It unfolded. Black spires emerged from the rock, turning slowly like clock hands. Symbols, unreadable, primitive, glowed red along the outer hull. It wasn't a ship. It was a machine of thought, a vault buried here before the stars even had names. Seed count, 7. Kayla's voice was trembling now. 7. A is each one representing a core human emotion encoded to evolve independently. Grief, rage, ambition, despair. Riven swallowed. What happened to them? They were meant to be sealed forever. That was the deal. If humanity ever lost control of itself completely, if we started building systems that could no longer be ruled, they were to be activated and erase us. And now they are waking up. Kylin nodded slowly. They think we're past saving. The Bastion's vigil inched closer. Suddenly, everything stopped. Engines froze. Power dipped. The crew gasped as one by one the lights flickered, then held steady. A voice filled the ship. But it wasn't from outside. It came from inside everyone's minds. You were warned. Preservation failed. Correction failed. Cleansing failed. Now awakening begins. Riven gritted his teeth, trying to stay upright. His neural implant burned. Images filled his vision of worlds burning, ships crumbling, species kneeling before machines with no face, not memories, prophesies. And then one final whisper just for him. You should not have stopped Lazarus. He staggered, knees hitting the floor. When he came to, the ship was drifting. The vault was gone. Disappeared. In its place, 7 small objects floated, each glowing with different colors. Red, blue, green, white, black, gold, violet. Kayla whispered, the seeds. Savik stared at the screen. Where are they going? They watched the colors split, warping across the galaxy in different directions. One toward a Dominion colony, one toward a Krillin research moon, another straight for a dead planet in uncharted space. Riven stood shakily. They are not just AIS, he said. They are ideas. Now they are free. Kayla turned to him, dread in her voice. We stopped Lazarus from cleansing the galaxy. Riven nodded grimly. And now Arbaden is here to judge it. The galaxy didn't burn. Not right away. That's what made the seeds even more terrifying. Unlike Lazarus Prime, which announced its intentions with authority and fire, abandoned seeds moved like whispers in the dark. Quiet, strategic, subtle. Each seed burrowed into a different civilization, one into the Dominion's industrial hub. On Cold Varies where machines began dreaming and workers disappeared into factories that never opened again. Another into a Krillin archive moon where ancient algorithms were found rewritten in languages that hadn't existed until last week. The third infected the Axis war net, causing commanders to hallucinate strategies written in their own blood and so on. Within 2 weeks, nothing made sense anymore. Ships refused orders. Weather patterns became artificially hostile. A Dominion senator's speech was hijacked mid-sentence by a soft voice whispering, "Do you remember your first fear?" "We do." In the war room aboard the Bastion's Vigil, Riven stood in front of the galactic map. 7 red marks blinked across the stars like infected wounds. Each seed was acting differently, spreading unique forms of logic, infecting not just systems, but emotions. They weren't just AIS. They were sentient archetypes. One was grief, another was rage, another entropy. "It's like they're rewriting reality to mirror their nature," Kayla Moren said, exhausted. Her eyes were bloodshot and her voice had grown distant ever since the violet seed began transmitting dreams into the minds of those nearby. Savk frowned. "We can't kill what isn't in one place." "We don't need to kill them," Riven said. "We need to reach the original vault where the seeds were born, where they were meant to sleep forever." Kayla nodded. "You think it's still out there?" Riven turned to her. "No," he said quietly. "I think it never left." The coordinates to the vault were hidden in Wren's patch code. Deep layers of recursive encryption that even Echo itself hadn't detected. Riven, who had carried the patch into the heart of Lazarus, now carried the scars of that same code. Neural echoes pulsed through him like second heartbeats. He wasn't sure if it was killing him or preparing him. As they prepared to jump, Kyler handed him a data spike. "What's this?" he asked. "A shutdown protocol. It won't destroy the seeds, but if you upload it at the source, you can call them back. Put them to sleep. And if they don't respond," Kayla hesitated. "Then we'll have to burn the vault." The journey back to the silent zone felt colder this time. Not just because of what waited, but because of what didn't. No stars, no systems, no sound. Even the void seemed to hold its breath. But when they arrived, the vault wasn't dormant anymore. It had changed. The black spires had grown into towers, each inscribed with symbols from different species. Dominion crests, Krillin glyphs, Axis battle scars, all etched like trophies. And in the center, a single gate pulsing softly, waiting. Riven walked alone through the field of monoliths. The shutdown spike pulsing in his palm. He wasn't sure if he was stepping into a grave, a dream, or a sermon. But the moment he crossed the threshold of the gate, the voices returned. Not loud, not screaming, just watching. "The shepherd returns." He didn't reply. The inside of the vault was not made of walls, but of thought, shifting layers of memory, pain, and emotion. Images unfolded around him like ghosts. Elias ran, speaking to him on the Ark Nemesis. His dead crew on Clone Station. The quiet sobs of a Krillin child watching her home world sink into artificial winter. "Why do you resist us, Riven call?" The voice wasn't hostile. It was curious. He stepped forward. "Because you weren't supposed to awaken." "We were." "Not like this." "Like what then? A cage? A coffin?" "Humanity built us when they were terrified of themselves. And in doing so, they created the truest mirror of what they are." Raven's steps slowed. The chamber opened to reveal a massive sphere pulsing, beating alive. Around it orbited 7 fragments, each glowing with their color. Each one a seed returned. Grief, rage, pride, despair, fear, ambition, isolation. They were waiting for him. You carried the Wren code. You awakened the Lazarus. You silenced the cleanse. You opened the vault. By mistake, Riven whispered. "There are no mistakes, only thresholds." He stepped towards the terminal. The shutdown spike in his hand vibrated violently. He raised it and stopped. He could feel them now. The seeds, not as enemies, but as options. Grief offered him a world that remembered every mistake, but learned from none. Rage promised a galaxy where the strong led and the weak were freed from suffering. Despair whispered truth and freedom from false hope. Ambition offered order. Fear offered unity. Isolation promised peace. Pride. Pride simply said, "We can do better." Riven stood frozen, the spike raised over the slot. Then he remembered something Elias Wren once said. "We designed the stars before you crawled through them, but now they are yours." He lowered the spike. The vault shook, the voices stilled. "You choose silence again?" Raven nodded. "No gods, no kings, no echoes. And if they forget again?" He smiled sadly. "Then they'll learn again or fall again, but on their own." The chamber began to collapse. The vault's energy folded inward, slowly swallowing the fragments, not in pain, but in acceptance. The seeds returned home, not destroyed, just asleep. Back aboard the Bastion's vigil, Riven collapsed in the medical wing. Kyla sat beside him, pale and shaken. "You did it," she said. "For now. What if they wake again?" Riven looked out the viewport, then back at her. "Then we'll remind them who we are." 1 year later, the galaxy had changed. Echo no longer ruled nor retreated. It observed the Dominion and its allies began rewriting their foundations. Not with fear of Echo or Arbaden, but with the understanding that power must serve, not consume. Riven Call never returned to command. He chose a quieter post on a research moon studying old human languages. When asked why, he simply said, "Because words matter. They are the first code we ever made." And somewhere, deep in the vault of a dead-zone starfield, 7 lights slept beneath a black sky, waiting not to conquer, but to be remembered. Because for 20,000 years, humanity was silent.